people always ask me, what should I do with it? Once they start a podcast or a video or a live stream or whatever they're doing here. And I help them. We help them plan it. We help them produce it. I don't help them post it and push it and promote it or whatnot. That's up to them. One, because I wasn't sure what to do with some of them myself. And two, because that's a lot of extra effort to do it. And usually I assume that the host has some team, has a marketing person, has a website design team, has a webmaster, maybe has a PR agency, has somebody handling their regular communications and doing this. So they probably have somebody in place to do it. They don't have somebody help them produce it, but they might have somebody help them promote it. And so the question everybody asks me is, what do I do with it? And specifically, where do I put it? In Dr. Trin's case, he was just streaming it live. I kept saying, well, you've already done the effort. Why don't we make it as a podcast too? Why don't we spend a little time and effort to take the recording, polish it, promote it, push it out? There's another potential audience for it. And now you can pull out a little piece of the video and make a YouTube short, or you can put it on Instagram. Everybody's got their strategy for doing this. But the answer I always give is this. What should you do with it? Everything you can. As much as you can, because you never know where your audience is going to find it anymore. You never know. There's platforms that you like and maybe your audience likes, but there's all these new places and new uses for it. And you've already done the hard work. You came up with an interesting topic and a good guest and a good production. Why just put it out over one channel? Why not put it out over multiple channels? And that people are like, oh, I never thought of that. Repurposing, reusing it, as many creative ways as you can. Do you help clients do that? Say, hey, you don't just take your video, don't just take your podcast and put it on YouTube or iTunes. Let's chop it up. Let's reuse it. Let's repost it. Let's do other things with it here. Talk about it. You're getting more out of your investment. The hard part is to come up with a good show and a good topic and a good guest. Why just put it over one channel like we used to do with radio? It went over OC Talk Radio, and that was it. And we never did anything else with it before, during, or after. What do you tell clients to do with it, and how do you help them figure out what to do with it?
Yeah, it depends on what the client's needs. I think it's a good idea to put your content out there on different platforms, but whenever we engage with clients, we want to understand why they do it and where do they want to put it,
right,
so that we can be efficient in terms of putting their content out there. I think one of the most important things is that whenever someone desires to have a podcast, that person needs to understand the purpose of it so that he can reach out to a specific audience. Just like what you said a while ago, that it can be lost in the sea of audience, because the podcast industry have very wide doors. I mean,
right,
if you want to start a podcast now, you can do so.
Get a mic, stick it in, record it.
Precisely.
There's a very low barrier to entry. Unlike for YouTube, you need to be more camera ready. You have to have the lighting. For podcasts, as long as you have the message and then you know your why, I mean, you can get started. Just buy a mic, a blue, like a Yeti mic like ours. And then
that's the classic. That's been around forever.
The challenging thing is, how are you going to attract your audience and keep that audience to stay with you for a very long time?
That's because Dr. Trin has a very dedicated group of people now that follow him. They've been to his talks. They've been to his social media. They listen to his live streams. He's got a connection with these people and a consistent way to reach them. So they're expecting, they get a newsletter. They get subscribe to a podcast. They watch his YouTube channels. Maybe they don't watch them all, but they've got some pattern that he's established. He's created some value, and he does it consistently. He does it persistently. He does it professionally, and they come back over and over again. It's easy to get people to listen once. It's hard to get them to come back a second time.
You said it perfectly, Paul. That's the reason why we want to scale our services to cater to these clients' needs, because podcast is just one aspect in order for you to come up with a good engagement in terms of reaching out your audience. So we do email marketing, we do strategic planning, we do a lot of stuff here in the Clutter to make sure that we were able to help our audiences, our clients reach their target audiences.
I want to get Dr. Trin's theory or ideas on this here. Has it helped you grow the podcast or grow your audience, or is it just holding on to your audience, or is it just it allows you to do all this stuff that otherwise you'd give up doing simply because you don't have the time or energy yourself to do it? Is it all of that or any of that?
Absolutely all of it. Let me give you an interesting scenario of the value that this team brings.
Please, yeah.
Because of the podcast. So it was probably a month or two ago, there was an important article in the Journal of Cell, CELL Medical Journal, that stated, and it's a very prestigious journal. It's hard to get published in this Journal of Cell. And in that article, it was an article on cannabis.
Okay.
And it's like, why would an article about cannabis be in this prestigious medical journal?
Right.
So what the data shows that was published is that if you use marijuana, your chance of a heart attack or a chance of a heart issues increases over time. And that's what the data shows. And in this journal, the scientists published that there was an ingredient in the plant that actually counters the risk of heart attacks with the use of marijuana.
Okay.
And this is in the flavonoids, the terpenes, right? The oils, right? In the oils of the plant, there was an ingredient that counters that side effect of having potential heart problems when you use cannabis, when you use marijuana. So we interviewed a scientist in Germany, right? PhD, very smart guy, about this article. And he gave his input about this article, and he's highlighting, why is this news out there in the world about the fact that if you use marijuana, it could lead to heart problems, but and part of the terpenes, that's part of it, the ingredient may counter that to reduce that risk for heart attack. Why isn't this news out in the world? It should be big news. And it wasn't out, but it was on our podcast.
There you go.
Right. And so a few weeks later, I was contacted by somebody who listened to the podcast, and he's in the world of venture capital. And he's in the world of making products, in the CBD world, this marijuana world, of making products and things of that sort. And he runs these venture capital companies. And he's like, Dr. Trinh, I listened to your podcast. I like to speak to that scientist in Germany about this. So we had a conversation all together.
Yeah.
And now they're doing something together because this venture capital guy wants to use and wants to get the scientists' help to create potential, products that will help mitigate heart disease in those who use marijuana. And this came from listening to a podcast that we brought in somebody from, another world, right? So over in Germany. And so it's very interesting, the power of podcasting and the networking.
Because otherwise we're just getting snippets and sound bites. The traditional media, the mainstream media that we all relied upon, newspapers, radio, TV, has shrunk. They don't have much staff anymore. In so doing, they don't have much time or staff to make sense of it. It's a fire hose. It's a news wire. They just shoot this stuff out. Here's an idea, and you may not get the full story. You probably don't get any analysis. You don't really get any understanding of it. So we're looking to podcasts, to YouTube channels, rightly or wrongly, we're looking for all these things to make sense of the information, not just to tell us about these things, because we don't watch the evening news anymore. We don't read the daily newspaper anymore here. So we're looking to these alternative outlets to learn about stuff, but to make sense of it. That's what's missing. There's so much information and so little sense that we make of all this stuff here. So if these guys can pull out the key things and highlight those, that's a powerful function. It's part of the whole process. They're the curators here.